the show. I really enjoyed talking to him. He then made frequent appearances on Phil Russo, Jason Hoyt, the Tea Party Patriot Show, which is a radio show. Phil and Tom have been so helpful in the Tea Party movement here in Orlando and have been good friends of the campaign. And we actually went up when we were protesting. We did the local Tea Parties here, but we protested in the National Tea Party up in Washington, D.C. Then we also protested against the health care bill, and Congressman King was gracious enough to let us come in and spend a few minutes with him. I gave him my book, hoping he'd endorse me someday, and that was crazy because he was one of the leaders on the congressional movement supporting the Tea Party folks and the protests against the health care bill, and things are kind of running around crazy, but we squeezed in a few minutes to talk to him and handed him a book, and the thing that's what I really appreciate about Congressman King is what Phil does and Tom does and Jason is. One, of course, he's a conservative, and he's standing up for our Constitution, speaking very loudly, very clearly, very articulately, and not just for the Constitution, our founders, and reminding us the greatness of principles, but he's fighting with passion, and he's also coming up with specific solutions to problems. And to me, the thing that I've always said to everybody is what made the founders great, same thing made Reagan great. Well, obviously they had truth that came from God and wisdom that came from God. But that would have been nothing if they didn't have that warrior spirit to basically take on the British Army, separate themselves from King. I mean, half the signers of the Declaration died. So, I mean, it was the fact that made these men and women special. They had the warrior spirit to fight for something they believed in. And Reagan was fighting against, at that time Jimmy Carter's president. The country was moving a little more towards socialism like it is now. Reagan had a Republican establishment that didn't really respect him. He lost the primary. And I remember the first time he had a great quote, another one of his great quotes, after he lost the Republican primary for president, he said, "I'm wounded, but I'm not slain. I shall rise and fight again." And that's what we're seeing the conservatives, rallying all of us together. And so, and that's what Congressman King brings, that warrior spirit, reverence for people, reverence for God, reverence for the Constitution, and just a genuinely good person, which we could use in our district right now. Somebody that really loves people, cares about people, and is in this for the right reasons. So I'm really honored that he's been endorsed the campaign and that he's here with us tonight. And I don't want to take too much time. I did want him to talk for a few seconds about the fair tax because a lot of us here are really excited that this is the one thing that will create economic wealth for our nation, that'll take the 17% unemployment rate and bring this thing down significantly, create enough wealth so our seniors are taken care of and stop bankrupting our kids and get rid of this $14 trillion of debt. So I want to speak a few minutes about that and then just basically anything he cares to share. But I really appreciate him being here, you guys being here. Some of you are supporting our campaign. I appreciate it. I'll turn it over to you, Congressman King. Thanks for
Well, thank you, Todd. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here and support your campaign. And I'm looking around the country for leaders that can step up in the United States Congress that have a foundation of beliefs that will reflect the belief system that has made America a great country. And I could go back over a lot of things in my history, but I remember all I really wanted to do was raise my family and run my business and control my destiny. And so I happened to be sitting with my priest when our three boys were probably about 2, 3, and 4 years old. And he said to me, "Steve, you need to be thinking about mission." And I looked at him, and his father, Bob O'Keefe, and he was actually one of those foreign-born Irish priests with a wooden leg, and he would take this wooden leg off the socket off his stump, and throw it up on the couch in the rectory, and then he would look at me with these really dark Irish eyes, and you need to be thinking about mission. And it was my conscience looking at me, and I said, just the honest answer, I said, "I don't want to go to Africa. I just want to raise my family and run my business." And with those dark eyes, he just drilled right into me and with his eyes, and he said, "Did you ever think you might be doing exactly what God wants you to be doing right now?" Well, no, I thought I was selfish, because I didn't want to go to Africa and go on a mission. But so I look back on those times now, and I think I was doing what God wanted me to be doing then. Run the business, raise the family, learn about the ways of the world. And then as the frustrations grew, I would go to Des Moines and significantly lesser times to Washington, D.C. to lobby the people that were messing up my life. And I can remember one day I was standing in the Des Moines Capitol talking to a state senator, and I had an argument that was irrefutable and simple common sense, and there shouldn't have been any controversy, and it wasn't happening. And so as I looked at him, I had him buttonholed, as we say, and I've been buttonholed many times. And I saw his eyes glaze over just like a dead fish. You know what they're like. And I thought, I'm talking to this man, and I might as well be talking to a dead fish now. And I could have gone, come back to me, I have an important thing, it's wrecking my life. But instead I just thought, and I walked away in the middle of the conversation. I don't even think he knew it. I got in my old beaten up, rusty pickup with the fenders flapping, and I drove back home 2.5 hours to go climb in the seat of a bulldozer and go back to work. And all the way home I'm thinking, I can come back to Des Moines over and over again. I can take hours out of my days out of my life to go lobby these people that are supposed to be setting up the right kind of rules so we can prosper and take care of our families. I can go to Washington and do the same thing. But if we have the wrong people to make these decisions, it takes an awful lot of maintenance to have the wrong person making the decisions for you. And so then I thought, I need a new state senator. So I went around the horn and went to see my favorite guy, who would be the best state senator I could imagine, to convince him he should run against my dreamy, middle-of-the-road, 24-year incumbent state senator. And of course his answer to me was, no, Steve, I'm not the man for the job, you are. Well, okay, I don't need to talk to you anymore. I went on to the next one and the next one, and I didn't know these guys were calling each other. By the time I got around to the
They were on to you.
They were my kitchen cabinet, but it was God's calling. It really was. And you know, sometimes He has to kind of brain you with the 2 before to get your attention. Well, so anyway, I challenged a 24-year Republican incumbent state senator in a primary, and then the Republican leadership started to show up, and it was, if you have any idea what you've done, you've got to be a political neophyte. They didn't quite call me a fool. But no one could possibly unseat this man. He has all these connections, all this money, all of this. And so I thought, well, I'm going to have to try a little harder. So I threw everything into that, and I went and won the state senate race with a 2-to-1 margin. He carried like 67%, and his home county was 75%. That's 3-to-1. That's just like unheard of, that somebody that's an incumbent could lose a primary like that. Well, anyway, that sent me off through the state legislative side. I refused all special interest money as a state legislator, and that was so good for me because it solidified my analysis of policy to be, the equation was no part of where's the money come from or who's influential. The equation was strictly what's good for, in most cases in the state legislature, Iowans. And that habit, that discipline that came through 6 years of that has really been useful to me in Congress. And the rest of that's more of a public story. But I just want to tell you that we do have an important charge. And this country, so many times we come into an election and we'll say this is the most important election of your lifetime. And sometimes I'm thinking that sounds a little too familiar to me to say that each election. This time I'm wondering why we ever said it before, because this time I know this is a lot. I don't know if it's the most important in our lifetime. We don't know that, but it's more important than any election I can think of in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
This is the destiny of America this time.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the things I want to try to say, some of the things that I thought I had burned up too much time to get to downtown. And that is, it's about the destiny of America. Who are we as a people? I would define American exceptionalism, the foundations of makes us a great nation, this way. And I have to take you back in history a long ways back, 2,500 years ago in Greece. And there was Socrates teaching Plato, and there was Aristotle. And these guys sit around their togas in Athens, and they developed the age of reason. And there weren't a lot of philosophers there, but they took great pride in being rational, reasonable people. And they built the foundations, they established the foundations for science, the theorem, the hypotheses, the axiom, a number of other components of our scientific thought and our logical, rational thinking came from the age of reason in Greece. And then the Romans didn't think a lot of the Greeks didn't think a lot of the Romans, but we got the Roman rule of law that came out of that. And this all flowed through into the, well, it would have been lost in the Dark Ages if it hadn't been for the Irish. I have to tell you that. But I tell my Irish family, and which the Kings are descended from, and my wife's side of the family are Kellys, that why are the Irish so proud of being Irish? And they don't have a very good answer to that. But I say I can tell you why. Because the Irish are the only people that recorded history during the Dark Ages when nothing happened. If nothing was going on, but the Irish scribes were sitting there in their monasteries, and they were writing down and transcribing the classical literature that emerged from the Greeks and the Romans. They preserved that rational thought. Now, the Age of Reason then came through the Dark Ages because of the Irish scribes